I reminded you that you are perfect, would you argue me down or step into your perfection? Welcome to Perfect Mode, where there are no excuses, no expectations, and we explore the world without limitations. I'm JClay, rapper, the spiritual teacher, with my co-host Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. Let's be real, so let's be perfect. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode. Perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode, perfect mode. Everything, anything, plenty things, perfect mode.
Perfect.
Yo. What up? Welcome to Perfect Mode. And first off, let me start by telling y'all that we love y'all. We're grateful for the opportunity to be anywhere, sharing our thoughts, hopefully helping you realize that you are perfect. And the reason why I can say that unapologetically is because I know that you are one of one, numero uno. You cannot be duplicated, replicated. And the only reason, and I mean the only reason you would think otherwise is if you're looking at this person next to you and saying, I'm not them. But guess what? You are you, and that's all you need. And of course, it's yours truly, Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. And I have my boy JClay, spiritual rapper and teacher. And we're about to get on here to tell you what to do when progress stalls. What to do when progress stalls. What up, Jay?
Yo, what up? Happy Sunday. Happy perfect Sunday to all my perfect people in perfect land, doing the perfect things at the perfect place at the perfect time. It's all perfect. And yeah, man, I'm feeling good. I'm eager to talk about this because I actually experienced this week, and it was eye opening in many ways. And yeah, as always, we need to flesh it out.
So I guess to actually get this started, I'm interested in your experience, and I'll tell you about me having some style out times as well. But I want to start with where you are and what styled out and how did you overcome it?
Yeah. So. Okay, so the interesting thing about this is last Sunday, I think I might have mentioned I had like the best basketball game I've had in a long time. But the second to last play, like I kind of tweaked my back. It was just like everything shifted down. I was like, that's weird, but I'm standing straight up, so I'm good. And then I, went about my day. I went and played pickleball for the first time later, so more physical activity. But then that night, I was I don't know. It was just I was locked up a bit, and then so like the whole week, it's like the soreness has been shifting. So it's getting better. It's shifting, but that stopped the progress of like the physical activities that I've been doing and that I want to continue doing. The things I want to progress in, and it was just like that's just kind of stalled out. But at the same time, because I'm in this get it energy right now. Like I have this wave of energy. I can't tell you where it came from, but how I am when I have certain good creative energy, I ride that wave. So it was kind of disappointing in that, but that same energy was directed at other things that needed to be taken care of. And I've been getting stuff done like I've never gotten done before. And so that's just a mild example. Like I've had deeper examples of this, but it was a shifting. It was like, okay, I can't do this now for this goal or for these goals. What else can I do, if anything?
Okay, so a couple things here. And so number one, I appreciate your approach to that mug because your approach is always an ideal approach for anybody, for all of us. The thing that comes to my mind that I want to, I guess, tell our audience first is that you never stop being a creator. That's the beautiful part about us being the gift. You know what I'm saying? You never stop being a creator. And the reason why I bring that up is that when we're going through this thing called life and we're trying all these different things, and then you actually get to that point, i.e. the incident with your injury or with me. Yesterday I was at a basketball tournament with my kids, and I don't even know how it happened, but I kind of hyperextended my knee. It kind of bent back just a little bit. And, you know, I number one, my progress didn't stall that day. And the reason why is because I had purpose for being there. My purpose for being there was supporting my kid, making sure that I cheer for him, make sure I record the game like I generally do. But then when I got home, then I don't have that same motivation. And so things that I could want to do or things that I would think that are important to do, I can just say, you know what? I don't want to deal with that right now because my leg hurt. Even so much so you can come into today, before we get on this show, I don't want to say we were behind because we were always on time, but I wasn't moving at the pace that I normally would move at in a day before a show because my leg was not feeling the way that I feel like it's supposed to be feeling. But I had a purpose, which is the reason why I'm here, right? But I guess the big part of it is last night, whenever I felt like the things that I should have been doing, I didn't do, I gave myself a second to realize, well, I'm a creator. What else can I do in the position that I'm in? And I think that's key when it comes to, you know, what to do when progress stalls, is remembering that you're a creator. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and now that you said that, I'm remembering more about the story. Like the day after, I was hurt, not hurt like my back was hurt, but hurt like mentally. Like, man, I was ready to just, you know, do what I was ready to do. So it was a little bit of sadness. So I was like, man, you know what? I'm about to just eat me a big breakfast and then just go about my business. And so I ate a big old breakfast, some stuff that I wouldn't normally eat. That's, I mean, still healthy, but just not that what I would normally eat or whatever. And I felt good. I was happy I did that, and that then I was able to relook at things from a place of acceptance. Like, okay, this is the situation. This is the truth right now. I could probably still do stuff and aggravate this more, or I can take this time to heal because I haven't really rested in a while anyway. And then I can just focus on these other things. And that acceptance was key, because when I tell you, I kind of want to say I had a perfect week by my standards. Like, you know how you have things you just want to make sure you hit, or just milestones and just certain things. And it even added to extra habits that I didn't even know needed. Like I told you separately, I was like, man, I finally imposed a limit on my phone for like social media, and I stuck to it. Like I didn't hit ignore. And it was funny. Like even with that, I had to pivot because there's so many times I just instinctively opened a social media app, even right after closing it, reopening it again. I'm like, no. But I was creative in so many other ways and just took care of stuff. So it was cool.
So two things here. Side note, I hate when I do that, FYI. Like whenever I impose those limits on myself, the thing that comes to my mind more often than not when this happens is the fact that I would get on my phone and open up an app. Not that I just closed it, but I would open up an app out of routine. Yeah. And I absolutely be like, why did I just do that? And I'll even change the screen and try to go and pick what I'm looking, but I would still open up the same app just out of routine, out of habit. So that's neither here nor there. I just have to say that because of what you said. So you're not alone. But the other part to this is the part that I think that we have to get to is realizing that roadblocks are purposeful all the time. Like, again, I'm telling you to remember that we are creators at all times, but roadblocks are purposeful at all times, because I think it's a draw for you to go and dig into your creativity. You never heard a person that created a business that didn't hit a roadblock and then figure out a way to pivot around that. And a lot of times it created a better or faster pathway or made their business better. And especially for myself, funny enough, I deal with progression stalls all the time. I'm a real estate broker. I'm a realtor, right? And so, you know, in real estate, a lot of times you catch waves. There are certain times when people want to sell houses, and there are some times where it's not that they don't want to sell houses, but they have a hesitancy because they realize that there's a market shift at certain times of the year. So there's always this period where there feels like progress stalls for me. And so what ends up happening is I go through a state where I'm like, dang, I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden this roadblock starts to kick into action my creativity that was always there, but I never gave it the proper acknowledgement for me to utilize it. So what you'll see is, okay, well, I start doing a string of videos, or I start talking to my team, or I start reading more articles. And what's happening in that is I'm bringing more to my world. Not that I need more, but the inspiration for me to be able to create more business. And that's how, you know, any entrepreneurial job works. And I mean, I just think that's kind of how it goes for everything. But again, just being able to tap in and realize that, okay, this roadblock was here for me to utilize other skills that I have. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and even and it even led to more fun in other ways. Like it wasn't even always about work with these roadblocks. But one interesting addition was I had the idea, like the time that I would normally go to Taekwondo class or whatever. I was like, well, I can't go. I'm gonna make dinner. So I didn't want to watch like streaming while I did it. I imposed that limit too. And I was like, man, what can I do? Oh, I want to listen to music, but without lyrics. I just want to listen to music. And I heard something about like certain classical pieces, they can raise your vibration. So I've never just played classical music. I'm playing classical music. It's changing the way I'm like cutting the vegetables and stuff. It's like, you know, you see the movies where it just prepared, like it just changed the whole world. So I was like, man, I'm gonna go with this. I sat at the table, I opened my window, and I was still listening to classical music, just eating, looking at nature, and it just changed the vibe of everything. I never thought that I would enjoy something like that, or that it would bring that much enjoyment. But that's just an example of just so much shifted. It had a domino effect to just try new things, period.
No, again, I love it because that's exactly what I mean. Like there is a progression style or a roadblock or a hill or whatever you want to call it, and it incites you to do something different. Like, and when you do something different, you're going to experience life a different way. It's automatically. It's just like being in an argument with somebody. If you're elevated emotionally, the argument only goes one way. But whenever you decide to lower your elevation, I guess, or I don't want to say, you know, but people say think about what's going on, then the terms in which the interaction is happening is going to change. And that's how we should be with all things in our life. I feel like, especially when we're productive, because I think that's kind of what we're alluding to here when we talk about when progression stalls. Like, again, for me in real estate, I have times again where I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I just don't know because you know, every real estate deal is different, or just being able to procure customers is different, just depending on what's going on in life. And, you know, the thing that comes to my mind is I want to use my wife as an example. Like, she does not want to do anything the same over and over again. Right. Like, she won't watch the same show. Like I will binge watch a show. I will watch the same show over and over again. Not mean watch but I'm saying I will binge watch something, right?
Yeah.
But and I assume you're saying you, but I guess the beauty of life is when you have these roadblocks, that's a hiccup in the mundane tasks that you do over the repetitiveness of anything. And so it gives you, again, more opportunity to be within yourself. And again, I'm not a person that has a problem with doing anything over and over again the same, but I also do know that there is a such thing as called boredom. And whenever boredom kicks in, I'm not necessarily tired of doing the same thing over. It's just that now I'm used to this. Do I really want to do it, right? And so I think that again gives you the opportunity to say, how else can I do this? How can I change my environment? You know, how much energy can I bring to it? What else can I add to it in order to make to progress at a more, you know, faster rate that of what I'm looking for anyway? But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, there's an opportunity even with the mundane to take it to the next level. Like I've seen clips of people like maybe chopping up some vegetables where they could just do tricks with it and stuff. And it's like the only way to do that is you got to get comfortable with the basics, and then you want to progress. Because, you know, a lot of times when your love isn't there, you do just enough to be good enough to do your purpose. And so like, which is interesting to me now that I'm thinking about it, like, man, yeah, there's so many things I could go to the next level on. But the cool thing is, so I think 2 weeks ago we had a show called something about let's get that money or whatever. So because I'm still in that mode as well, so many opportunities came up, like in this potential roadblock that I was in, and like my mind has just been expanded. Like, man, I did not see that before. I didn't even know that that was a viable option. I didn't even know I had this set up already. Like I hadn't. All I had to do was maybe press play on it or something, and it's just amazing how the things that we pray for, the intentions that we set, the directions we want to go, even the perceived roadblock is a step in that direction if we allow it to be. And because sometimes people be like, "Well, fine, I just give up. I'm not gonna do this no more." I do that, but it's like, fine, God, I give up on this particular action that I'm doing for now because you obviously don't want me to do this. But I'm gonna pivot slightly and just see. And usually the doors open, and the thing that I pivoted from kind of either took care of itself or um it was meant for me to revisit later where it could be easier to do.
So you said two words here. One of them was give up and one of them was pivot. And I know you don't mean give up, because pivot is not giving up that mug. It's really just moving that mug to the side for the time being. And the reason why I like that is, again, imagine thinking that I'm going to do something and then telling yourself that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and it's not true. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, I think that's a habit. So again, I know that you don't give up on anything. I know you were just, just talking. Oh, go ahead.
Well, so my definition of give up has changed, right?
Okay.
So like giving up, that it seems like the worst thing. Like, man, you gave up? You're a giver upper, you're a quitter. And that's not the same as quitting. Like quitting is you just done, never to do it again. But give up, like what are you giving it up to? Who are you giving it up to? And it's like, I'm giving it up to the higher power to take care of, so that I don't have to do all that right now. And so to me now, give up is a beautiful, positive thing. I'm happy to I give it up to you.
And I'll say this for everybody that's listening: take on that. I would say take on that definition as well, because I figured as much as soon as you started saying it again. That's what it was. But again, most people don't look at that like that, and I mean, I just think that that's a good way to look at it. Give it up to God or move it aside, and allow yourself. Again, we would not allow ourselves time for things to materialize or for things to when you plant a seed grow. You know what I'm saying? Like, we feel like we have to have our hands on it at all times in order for us to be progressing. And sometimes things progress when you allow them to harvest or grow, or you just let them do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes that is let it sit to the side. That is give it up to God and let him, do whatever he needs to do with it. And for whatever reason, there is a negative thought process behind it. For myself, again, even when I talk about real estate and there being a wave or a kind of a routine of how things go, when I'm in that stagnant place, I have to combat the thoughts of things not being good. I have to combat the thought of things not moving along. And, again, the way that I do that is that I remember that I'm in other areas. So what happens is I take all that energy that I'm spending thinking about the negative things that I have, said are happening, and apply that toward the growth of something else. And which in turn, it allows those other things that I've given up to God to grow or do what they're supposed to do. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I was thinking about a couple of things. One, with the when you said you don't allow seeds to grow, and how long it would take if we're watching a seed grow. Like it seemed like it'd take forever. But as soon as we let our minds forget about it and come back, it's like, oh, this was quick. And so that made me think about, of course, like being micromanaged. Nope, like for some reason, I don't like people to see me work. I know how crazy that sounds. Like even when I used to have a corporate job, when nobody was around, I would get so much done in the quickest way possible. But then when people were around, it'd be more like a hangout. And they'd be like, man, how do you do stuff, man? I don't know. I just get it done. For whatever reason, I've been like that. But then that made me think, like, in some instances, does the higher power, does God step away? Like, I'm gonna allow you to grow come back, you know, when you're ready or something. Because sometimes, you know, we like, why God, why is this happening? Why aren't you helping me or whatever? But in some instances, that is the help, like just by not helping. Because, you know, if you're always helping, in a sense, you don't get to rely on your own sense of power. You don't get to believe in yourself. You only believe in the other, even though it's one and the same, but it's just it's a different stance when you do have that self-confidence and self-belief.
I honestly think that's how it is all the time. That's the reason why you have the saying that he might not come when you want him to, but he always on time. Yeah, like if you really think about what you just said, the way that you described it, is like on time was when you fit out. Like I mean, if you think about it, like I'm doing all of this and you saying why, and then all of a sudden you stop saying why, and then you just go on about things, and then you figure that mug out. That's how that generally works, that I've witnessed and I've experienced myself. And so again, there's something I like the fact that you said how, you know, people say like watching paint dry, but you said like watching the plant grow. Like the thought process of just sitting and watching the plant grow would drive you crazy. Especially when you know that it's supposed to do something. And then when you think about us, we know that we know when we have a seed of creation, it's supposed to grow. Like we know it's going to, and there only becomes limited belief when we sit and watch it like we're watching a plant grow. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and actually, now that you say that, and I'm thinking about the co-collaboration and all, it's kind of like breathing. Like, you know, you breathe in, you breathe out. Like you hold on to stuff, and then you let go what's not needed anymore. And I find that I'm the happiest when I figure it out. I do what I need to do, or I do all I can, and then I give it up for the day. And it's like, okay, move on to the next thing, or to the, you know, I'm letting this go. I'm giving this up to do what it does, and then I revisit it at a later time. And it's almost like I'm inspired with new ideas, which I wouldn't have had if I just kept hammering it out nonstop, not allowing me to grow and it to grow at the same time.
Bro, the thing that I love to do more than anything is write songs, right?
Yeah.
Like, but the craziest I've been is when I don't have the thought for that song and I just sit and listen to the beat over and over again. Like, it's the thing that it puts me in a space that I never want to be in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, I use that because it's something that I love, and I try to, I guess, make the correlation between us and the people listening, and also other things that we decide to do that we do micromanage in a sense when it's not necessary. It's one of the things that I always appreciated about you, that I was never able to master the way that I wanted to, was being able to work on multiple songs at a time. Like you knew when you were at your breaking point, and you knew that creativity could go somewhere else. But you know, like I was saying earlier, whenever something is when there's a progress stalling somewhere, you will sit and you will live in that negative process of it and not move on to something else. But the moment when you decide to and again, I've done it. It's just that it's not my favorite thing to do. But when I've been able to just go on to the next beat and write something else, I'd be like, well, I'm just gonna do this song now. And I literally would just forget about that song. But the creativity was there because I allowed myself to grow outside of the pot that I was in. But go ahead.
Yeah. The thing about that with me and like writing multiple songs. So okay, one thing I'm fascinated by is, let's say I have a deadline on the song, and I was already stalled. I find a way to get past that and make it so I meet the deadline. Now I don't know if it'd be better if I would have waited or not, but the cool thing about pivoting to the next song or pivoting to something else is my intention is always to get the best out of me for this particular song. And sometimes my vibration or my mood might not match that of the song. And so it's better to revisit when I'm like, oh yeah, I can speak about this right now, versus, you know, forcing myself to. But also it's like I get to collab with another great artist from a different point, which is me. Like if I forgot about a song and I realized it wasn't finished and I hear it, I'm like, this is amazing. I wrote that. What? And to be able to then collab with this person, because now I have new ideas, because I'm a new person at this point. I have different perspectives on things, and it makes it a more complete package. And so, like, for all creatives, like I all those that create, I would definitely say collab with yourself in that way. Like, revisit projects you never finished, and don't be afraid to put down that project when you get stalled, and come back, because the best thing, you get to create with one of the greatest artists ever, which is yourself.
So I like something that you said, and I would say it like this: understanding where your energy is, knowing where knowing where you're the most enthusiastic, because I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because there is something about when you style some area and going to something that you feel like is a filler. And I think that's important to understand as well, versus you really digging deep within yourself and realizing what else you want to do. Because there are things that, like, again, right now that I do not want to do, or I might be stalled at. And there are other things that I can put in to fill the gap, but I don't want to do those either.
Yeah.
And I think that when you were just describing like going to the next song, and you just like, oh, I know I can wreck it. Like, there's a feeling that kind of comes along with it. And I think that so a couple things here. Knowing where your energy is, I think that you cannot spread yourself too thin, right? And not being afraid to apply the energy where the energy actually is, despite whatever the outside factors might be telling you. Because sometimes you can feel like your energy should be going to something, but there are a lot of things around you that's telling you don't do that right now. It could be people, it could be circumstances, it could be others' energy. It's just a bunch of different things that could play a role in that. So I think that just not being afraid is important too. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and when you say that about spreading yourself too thin, I used to actually be afraid of that in a lot of instances, because it's like, man, I can only do so many things at once, which is true. You can only do so many things at once. But there've been so many things I've been able to lend a hand to, just because I was excited, even for something someone else was doing, and I knew I could help them with that it was more exciting than what I was working on. But that doesn't mean I forgot about the project I was working on. That doesn't mean that I didn't revisit it. But that energy match was for a reason, because I can honestly say it led to a lot of things. And it doesn't have to be like opportunities. It could just lead to realizations from within, that it's like, man, I'm glad I got to experience that. And I wouldn't had I not followed that flow of energy, where it was stalled out in one spot, but it was greater in this other spot. And it's a beautiful thing when you just, I don't know, when you just following that flow. And with that, like, I have a lot of projects I'm working on right now, like a lot at different stages, some even almost complete. But even in those states, sometimes, like I said, that energy is heightened in other areas. Follow that, you can't go wrong.
I think about my kids in this instance when we talk about this, because specifically Brody, because he's younger and he doesn't have what I would say is that stuck focus. And what I mean by that is what we're talking about, where we get to doing things and then we'll style out and then we'll lose progress on the style out because we don't want to move on. But I think about him, and they say be childlike. Like, Brody will stop anything in a dime and go do something else. Like, that's what he wanted to do all the time. And, again, just as an example, and I'm always puzzled by it too. That's what's funny about it. So he'll be playing on his and he'll be in the middle of a Madden game, like middle of it, like second quarter. And then he'll just stop the game and he'll just jump on 2K, and then he'll play 2K, play maybe 3/4, and then he'll just stop. And I'm like, right, he don't want to finish any of this. Then he'll go back and he'll play FIFA. And then he'll stop and he'll come into the living room and talk to me. Daddy, let me tell you about the score on this game. And he'll tell me the scores on each game that he haven't finished yet. And some kind of way he can always go back and finish them. But he literally, and he's having the time of his life, living all these different worlds all at the same time. Then he'll just all of a sudden stop and just start playing basketball in his room and play a full out game. And then last night ended up coming in the living room with me and was like, let's watch a movie. In the middle of his basketball game, watched the movie with me, fell asleep. And again, he didn't anything. He didn't, but he was in a place of happiness and joy the entire time, while I was in a place of confusion, looking at him, trying to understand how are you being fulfilled when you never complete or have a complete thought. And again, this goes back to your thought about spreading yourself too thin. He has no thoughts of spreading himself too thin because he's not married to any specific thing at that moment. And the only thing he's married to is him having fun or him being joyous. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, because like when you're so focused on where you're at now, you have no time to even dwell on where you haven't been. And you're really trusting, because you don't think nothing of it. Like, yeah, it's gonna be there when I come back. And if it's not, who cares? Because I'm doing this now. I'm engaged with this now. I'm experiencing this right now. And we often get caught up in the what should I say? Like the describing things and classifying things, that we miss the thing itself. Like I've watched stuff, or I've seen like articles and stuff about how people write music and how you should approach it and everything. And to me, it's like, man, you losing it if you try to go in this formula. Yes, it could work. Yes, it could, but for me, it's a free creative form. Like, you can create a different way than you did before. You can make a completely different song than you did before. You don't have to follow any standard at all. You can write before you have the music. You can have the music first. You can freestyle it. You can it's just so many ways to go about it, that when we try to classify how to do something, it you lessen it in a way.
So to that point, like it says, we're saying what do when progress stalls out. But that is one of the reasons why progress generally stalls out, because of that fear. Like, I don't have to have all the answers, man. Like, having all the answers is what stopped majority of business people from being successful. Like, period. You know, look, when I just got my license to be a originator, well, I haven't got I actually passed the test. But a big part of me not going to take the test was fear of failing, number one. And then me thinking about when I get the license, what I'm going to do. And then I had to ask myself, what does it matter? Like, does it even matter? Why don't I just get it and then see where it takes me? It's the same thing about me going and, becoming a substitute. One of the most things that I've had happen now, bro, was being in the classroom with the kids. And I didn't know what it looked like. I tried to frame what it was going to be. Like, I tried to think about how I was going to act. But the reality is I've been in the school and it's just been a cool thing. You know what I mean? And the reason why I pointed out all of these different things out is because, just like Brody, my life is full. I'm not trying to have the answer to everything, or I'm not trying to understand the ending outcome to everything. And so because of that, I have the room for the stalling, because I'm just moving along and experiencing life the way that it's supposed to be experienced. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I love that. And what came to mind is, somehow we get caught up in right and wrong, like the wrong way to do stuff. I've heard a lot of people, like, they're like, how do you do this? Because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to do this wrong. I don't want to do it wrong. I never did this before. But it's like, you can't do it wrong. Like, it's, even if you did, you can correct it. Like, everything is correctable, and don't let that stop you. But also, I've been victim to that as well. Though it's like, I got all these options. I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to mess it up. And it's kind of like, when did that idea come into play? Like, when you brought up your son, some people may think once you play a game, you have to play the full game before you can stop playing. And it's like, somebody may have told one of us when we were his age, you're playing wrong. It's like, I'm playing wrong. There's a right way to play. And then we get blocked by all this other stuff. So it's interesting to see why we accepted that belief and what led to it. Because it's really not needed. Like again, to your point, you didn't know where the substitute teaching would take you. How could you know? But you did it anyway. It was like, well, let's do it. If I don't want to do it, I don't have to do it anymore. But let's do it. Oh, I like doing this. I will keep doing this. And it's that simple.
Bro, it's funny though, because when I think about it, again, you can use substitute teaching. You can teach, I mean, you can say grill. Like the very first time I started grill, and again, I'm not saying that I'm a professional griller either, or a grill master. I'm just a good enough grill master for myself, which is the most important thing. But it was the same thing. You know, one day I just went to Walmart and I got a grill. I never did it before. And then I told Chardonnay, I was like, we just gonna barbecue. And then I probably barbecued every week for probably about 3 months, just because I was so excited. Like, it was so much energy behind it, because I was having so much fun finding out something new. And again, when I think about the rest of my life at that time, it's not that everything else stopped. I didn't put all the emphasis on all the other things in my life, because something else had the energy, had the enthusiasm. And the beautiful part about it is, when I went back to all the other things that I was doing, the amount of focus that I would have had on stagnation was not there. Because as an example, I was working a job, and I was going to job, and I was talking to people about barbecuing. And so now, if you just look at the dynamic of my life, like, I'm doing this, not being bothered by whatever might have been stagnant about it, and I'm bringing in the rest of my world. So I grew my world. And, I think that, again, that's why I think following the energy is important whenever you do feel like you're stalled out, because you don't do anything but expand what your world consists of. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and what I love about that is, I want to say I've been around you where people have asked you about grilling as if you were an expert, whereas you just said, like, you just did it on a whim one day, and you did. And what's cool is you have become an expert, but at the same time, I mean, there's always more that you can learn. But it just goes to show, when you have that energy for something, people are going to want to hear your tips. People want to know what you're doing. Like, same thing. I even reached out to a friend of mine about gardening, because I've seen his videos of gardening, and I've always wanted to do it. I just didn't have the level of energy at that time. But the level of energy of me starting is still there, though. It has not waned. It just has not been more than the other thing. But I say that to say that anything you have enthusiasm for, if you follow it, people will start asking you the questions versus you asking all the questions before following it, if that makes sense.
No, it makes 100% sense. And then I had to get a side note on here and tell you, grow something.
Yeah, I mean, I have grown something. I just I want the backyard filled with some stuff, and I
feel you though, because again, it's to the point. Like, number one, when did you ever have time to do all this? You always had time to do all that. I'm talking about myself too, right?
Yeah.
Like, when did we ever have time? And this is kind of goes back to answer the question: what to do when progress stalls? What you've been thinking you should have been doing the whole time.
Yeah.
Because again, we're living a life where experiences is everything. Like, it literally is. Every time you experience something new, bro, there's a certain amount of love that kind of comes with that much. And that's even it. Look, and it's the reason why we over, and I don't mean this truly overdo, but this is the reason why we do things in excess, because we're in love for the moment. And it doesn't have to be what is described as the biggest things. Like, there's a time where I figured out how to boil eggs. And then I boiled eggs for everybody in the house for weeks, right? There was a time, like, for breakfast, I would just fix boiled eggs. Who won't boiled eggs? You know what I mean? And there was a level of joy that kind of just came with them. Like, I got boiled eggs today, right? Then there's a day when I learned how to cook chicken, or when I grew a plant, or when I figured out how to shoot with my kids. Like, oh, we gotta go out there today. And there's a level of enthusiasm experiencing new, just like going to a restaurant for the first time and eating that one dish, and you like, oh, they was in. So every single time I go there, I'm gonna get that, or I'm going to get outside of myself and say, I want this today just because I want this thing. And so, like, when progress stalls, what you've been thinking that you can't do, or that you don't have enough time to do, or that you feel like it's going to take too much in order for you to do it, you just have to do it. You just have to get that experience, because you don't realize the doors that you're about to open up for yourself. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. Well, so this is the tight thing about what you said. So first, this particular week, okay, if I have an idea of something to do, even if I can't do it, I just put it on my to-do list, and I don't assign a date. And so I never really go back to check that. And this week, I was just checking off items. I was like, well, might as well just do this. Just might as well do this. So I was doing it. And also I didn't realize how much time I actually had when I imposed those social media limits on myself. It's like, man, I got a lot of time. Yeah. So I say this to say that I'm with you. Like when you think about it, it doesn't really take that much time to plant a seed. Like you just that's really it. And then you get to then when you go work on everything else you want to work, you can just come back and look at it and just see, oh, okay, it sprouted, or it didn't sprout, or it grew, or it didn't grow. But it really takes a moment in time. So I'm with you. This week it's on.
Yeah, and again, you know, and so you're saying that, but I'm saying that back to myself.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying it back to myself is because even as we're going through it, when I'm giving the examples, bro, like I realize how much in love these moments make me be with myself. Like you know, from working out to cooking to growing something to, you know, just doing perfect mode. Like the experiences are everything. And again, we like to limit ourselves because we have truly defined all the ins and outs of every single experience that we're going to have. So when I grow this plant, it's going to grow in 4 days. It's going to do this. It's going to do this. I know exactly what it's going to look like, but I don't know what it's going to look like. You know what I'm saying? And so the thrill of life is finding that out. You know what I mean? Just like the reason why we get so caught up in shows, because when a show ends, we want to know what was going to happen next, because we don't know. It's the don't know that's important, or the experience, or just actually going through it. And I think that when you stall out, you've spent too much time knowing what you don't know. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I love that. And what's funny is, so you know, I said I tweaked my back, right, and it caused a domino effect of me shifting. The funny thing is, I actually thought that I would tweak my back earlier than that. Like even with the, you know, the expectations and things, because if I allow history to be my teacher, the things that I was doing, I was going hard on. Usually when I go hard too fast on it, like too hard, my back, like, nah, we wasn't ready for that. We weren't strengthened for that. We need to chill for a while. But when that didn't happen, I was like, oh yes, sir. I'm going extra hard and just doing like that. So it was probably even needed from that standpoint too, of a stall out from my body to just rest, and for me to pay attention to these other things as well. So it's almost like you can't go wrong. Like a roadblock, it is there for a reason. It's a gift. It's an answer to a prayer if you allow it to be, and not get caught up in the energy, like you said, that I've been caught up in before. Like, why? I've been trying hard. I'm focusing on this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Like, right, which is why this roadblock happened, so that you can continue that in other ways.
So I had to say, you hit this mug when you said, like, the question is, how can you go wrong when you're doing something for yourself? You know, and that's what makes me think about Brody. And you hit that mug when you said, somewhere down the line, somebody told one of us that when you play this game, you have to complete this game. When you do this certain way, it has to be this certain way. But Brody actually does operate in the mindset, how can I be doing anything wrong if I'm doing it for myself? So I don't have to finish the game, because I'm going to have fun with the next game, period. The other thing that he did that I used to mess with him about, I used to give him a hard time about it, but he still does it because I just left him alone, because it was just like he's in his own little world. But he would play these with 2 remotes. Like, he would play both sides. Like, he's going to play with this team. He plays single sometimes, but he'll play with both remotes, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, bruh, like, It's not a real game. You're not even playing. But again, this is the programming that you're talking about. And somewhere down the line, somebody told me it's not a real game unless you're playing against somebody real. Now, this is what's funny about this whole scenario that I'm using Brody as an example. He plays 2K with 2 remotes. But whenever I play him now, I can't beat him. And it's probably not going to be many people. I mean, he can lose probably the, TJ that plays as much as him against other people. But if you're a casual player that just knows how to play, you're probably not going to beat him in 2K. And that's him playing with himself all the time. And again, there's imposed limits that I have in my mind that says, well, if you never play with nobody else, you're not going to ever be better than anybody. But that's not real. And that's only because he's operating in what we're talking about. When progress stalls, I don't have anybody to play with. What are you going to do? Well, I just play with myself because that's what I want to do anyway. And so it comes back to the question that I asked: when you ever do wrong when you're doing for yourself? When can it be the wrong move? But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing with like generations, because each generation, whether they realize it or not, we're indoctrinated with a certain amount of rules. And as the new generations come in, they see the absurdity in it, which we might not have saw the absurdity in it, just like the same with our parents and so on back. Like we all saw the absurdity in what our parents did and were able to do things the other way. And I can see it. I see it a lot with the next generation too. Like they're like, yeah, y'all do this is crazy. We gonna do this. And it's like, man, you right. And that's part of that too, of getting stalled, because sometimes we'll get stalled to our own detriment, being caught up in a mindset of a time that's no longer, or of this. Like, I guess an example is you hear basketball players, not bad, but people who critique basketball, like, yeah, all this friendship stuff, and players, like they didn't talk to no other players. They wasn't about that, which is cool. I mean, I understand that too, because yeah, that is what it is. But it's different now. Like, and there's so many ways you don't have to go around having enemies anymore if you don't want to. You don't have to go around being miserable at your job if you don't have to be towards a certain amount of people. And it's just cool to allow yourself to be renewed in the new energy. Even I'll say this. I was talking to my wife last night, and we were just talking about even like with fashion, how like on the basketball court, you could sometimes easily tell ages by the short length, the length of their shorts and the length of their socks, just because, again, each generation does it differently. And I was just saying how there was a point, I was in the baggy era when I was like, there's no way I'm wearing fitted jeans or skinny jeans. Like, that's impossible. But one day it just looked right. And the baggy no longer looked right because I allowed myself to just be in the flow of new energy. And again, I don't know when the switch happened, but it just happened. But I know some people who still like, nah, I'm forever going to be wearing this baggy and like that. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just something to be said about it.
Nah, the reason why I laugh is because I don't remember when the switch happened for me, but I remember when the switch happened. And then I also remember me trying to go back to something baggy, but it didn't look right to me. It was like it was just shut off, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, and I want to elaborate on this, when you were talking about being renewed, the part that we have to all understand is that we're always renewed. That is for the stagnation. It gives you an opportunity to realize what the truth is. The truth is you're renewed. Like, you're stagnant here because something else can be elaborated upon. Like, your energy was waning here. So we put this in front of you for the renewed energy for you to spark something else. And what's going to happen is that's going to come back up. Just talking about you and me as an example, businesses that we have. And this is the reason why I don't never, like, me and you have this all the time. We talk about, well, I'm working on this, but I ain't going to put too much energy on this mug right now. And either if you say it or I say it, I'm going to be like, well, I'm not tripping, because I know it's going to be what it's supposed to be when it's supposed to be. And I think that giving ourselves that leeway, just like Brody playing the game, me just staying out of it, he's better at the game than I am, which in my mind he shouldn't be. And the reason why I pointed out is because I believe that you allowing yourself to be renewed in other areas is going to make this thing that we're defining as stagnant or stalled be better than it was going to be in the first place, because you are allowing the energy flow to flow the way that it's supposed to. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I love that you said that about that you're always being renewed, and that's true. And we try to stop the process for whatever reason. Like we're scared or something. We think our word is going to end. We really try to stop the process, and we think it's the worst thing in the world if things aren't going according to how we thought they should go. Not even allowing the other viewpoint to maybe seep in, or just a new way to seep in. And it will lead to you being miserable over time because you're just blocking. But if you allow that renewal, like you said, because it's always happening in so many ways, it will lead to life being more beautiful, be recognized as more beautiful.
And I will say this about that as well. First of all, I talked about just cooking eggs, barbecuing, growing stuff, coaching kids, teaching them how to shoot, being in the school. And there is a certain level of energy. If you're around me today, I talk about these things that you're going to see. It's going to be like, there's going to be excitement about all these things, because these are all renewable resources that were always available to me that I just chose to tap into because something may have been stagnant. So I agree with you. And again, there's just the amount of love that you have for yourself, allow your energy to renew and be experienced. But the other piece to this is other people will recognize it as well. And funny enough, I literally was just with my dad probably about 2 weeks ago, and he said something to me about myself that I didn't even necessarily can't pick up on. Yeah. Now, again, I'm telling you that I'm always being renewed because I'm allowing myself. But I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to get my loan officer license this week. I'm going to go take my test. This was the week before my test. I'm going to go take my test. And from there, then I'm going to see, what happens from that point. And that's kind of how I approach that mug. And he's like, man, I was just telling somebody about you. This was the worst. Like, you're always reinventing yourself every 5 years. It's always something new that you're adding to it. Now, mind you, I'm always growing, but I didn't know that there was any time frequency that anybody else could notice. Now, again, I feel like I do it more often than not, but again, it's still not something that I think that anybody is witnessing. And the reality of it is, again, a part of our makeup is we are drawn by the energy of what we feel like people think of us or what people are doing. Like, it's natural. You can get outside of it, but we do love and relish the idea of people seeing us grow. And so if that means anything to you, you allowing yourself to renew your energy is another spark plug, because people are going to witness it as well and give you the feedback that you are drawn to whenever you are doing these things. But go ahead, Jay.
And to that point too, like, if you're the type that would allow people to grow around you, it will lead to more pleasant experience as well, and more people wanting to be around you. Because I've been around people who want to keep you in a box, and they might not do it intentionally. They might not even know that they're doing it. So I wouldn't fault them for that. But I know I do have relationships where we allow each other to grow. We don't keep each other in, you only did this, you're supposed to always do this, you're supposed to always be this, and never go beyond it. And then the second thing I wanted to point out was when you talked about the eggs, and you were happy just boiling eggs, like the energy that you brought to this now, I can only imagine in your household, so much so that I don't eat eggs, but I would be like, hey, I want a boiled egg just from your energy. And it goes to show that when we follow our energy, it's contagious in a beautiful way. So yeah.
No, to that point though, like my kids was waking up in the morning crunk, like, we getting eggs today. Like they were really happy about that mug. And then it in turn made me happy too, because it was something that we all kind of had in common for those few weeks where the energy was flowing for that. And to your, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say on the eggs, but it just goes to show how simple joy can be. Like anybody can boil an egg, but but your energy is like, man, let's boil some eggs. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I also want to touch on your point about people wanting to keep you in that box, right? So it's two things here. You being the person that allows people to grow, or experience new things, or renew their energy and give them the right kind of energy behind it. But the other part too, people holding you into a box. And all the reason I say this is because I want you to recognize yourself, and I'm talking to everybody because this is something that I had to do. You have to be able to recognize yourself in it. Sometimes people hold you in the box because you're holding yourself in a box too, and you don't realize that you're holding yourself in a box. And and again, the reason why I know this is because my friends have been my friends since we were in middle school. And my friends have held me in boxes that I've held myself in, not purposely, but just based off of actions, because of the thing that I said earlier. We're wanting specific feedback from people. And again, you might do this.
You froze a bit on me,
right?
Oh, there you go.
You'll probably do this unconsciously, right? And like you're seeking feedback, and the feedback that I was always getting was, I always wanted my friends to know that no matter what, I was down for them. And so that meant if somebody wanted to fight, Troy was going to be there. So there was a bravado that I kind of walked around with all the time. Again, unconsciously, I didn't realize that I was doing it, but I wanted them to know that no matter what, if it go down, I'm down. I'm boxing, right? So what happened is my friends looked at me like the person that he's gonna be about that life, and that was my box. But that's what I was portraying. Again, I want to say, and again, I was about other things. I was about going out to have fun, go holler at girls, all this other kind of stuff. But the thing that was the top of my heart at all times when I was with them is, oh, I'm lit. You know I'm down. And so that box, they put me there. It's like, okay, if something go down, we gonna hit up Troy. Or if this is popping off, we gonna hit up Troy. And then in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like, why y'all always hit me for this stuff? You know what I mean? But the reality of it was the bravado that I led with gave them that. And then when I realized it and I changed it, the box disappeared. They looked for me for other things. They looked for me for different stuff that I wanted them to, because I was able to project exactly what I wanted out of my life, and they could see that. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a good reminder too, like to make sure we're not the ones holding ourselves in this box, because again, people will only treat us how we allow them to treat us. Even, well, yeah, I'll just say it like that. But we are getting close to the end. So I just to wrap it up and just to reiterate some things, there's no stalling out. When progress stalls, it's part of the progress continuing, just in another area. This needs to go on its own for a little while. It doesn't need your constant attention. And when you trust that, progress will never stall, and you can go from thing to thing to thing, or item or feeling to feeling of good feeling of joy, and it can be the most beautiful thing ever. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, just following behind Jay, I would just say, always realize that you're renewed, no matter what. I always realize that you're renewed. And I guess the best way to convey that is, whenever you're doing something, whether it's for a business, for yourself, for someone else, and you feel stagnant or you feel like there's nowhere else to go, just look deep within and realize what else there is to do. But it doesn't necessarily have to pertain to what you were doing. It will come back to you in its proper time, and it's going to come back bigger, better, or greater than you could have ever imagined, because you allowed the flow of energy. Sometimes that thing that you're going to do is going to give you the idea that you needed for what you were doing. And so you have to allow you to be as great as you are. And that sometimes means expanding yourself outside of where you think that you are. So, outside of that, I just want to let y'all know that we're grateful for y'all being here. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here. We definitely be doing something, but we wouldn't be here. And just to remember, just to always be renewed. And Jay, you can take us out, my guy.
Yeah, appreciate y'all. If you found this helpful, that like button, share, subscribe, consider hitting the donation on the link that is there of the Patreon. And yeah, man, just remember, you're a perfect creation made by a perfect creator. So you might as well accept your perfection and enter perfect mode. Yeah. If I reminded you that you are perfect, would you argue me down or step into your perfection? Welcome to perfect mode, where there are no excuses, no expectations, and we explore the world without limitations. I'm JClay, rapper, the spiritual teacher, with my co-host Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. Let's be real, so let's be perfect. Perfect. Everything